With the information we've covered so far, you should have a good idea of the changes in statewide hunting regulations and deer management. But let's face it, no one hunts the entire state. You probably have one or two areas where you and your friends will hunt this year. And I'm sure you want to know what to expect when you step into the woods on opening morning. So let's take a look at a forecast for this year's hunt for each of the state's 4 deer management zones.
In northern Wisconsin, winter still rules for managing the deer herd, and what happens the previous winter and even the winter before that will determine how your hunting season is for deer in northern Wisconsin. We need to dial back to what happened 2 years ago, 2013 and 14 winter. It was the most severe winter on record in northern Wisconsin, and deer were impacted by that. We saw deer that died from the winter, direct mortality, and also we saw fewer fawns born. That impacts what hunters will see this year because there'll be less yearling deer out there because those fawns were not born 2 years ago. The big irony in this year was our winter this last year. It was the complete opposite of the very severe winter of 2013-14. We had a very mild winter, and we had a very early spring green up, and that's all very, very important for deer production. Deer feed primarily on aspen leaves in northern Wisconsin and just all the other forage in the forest floor and into the grassy areas and the marshes. So the bottom line is the deer herd in northern Wisconsin is rebuilding. In addition to having really good fawn production this year, the bucks that survived this last winter will probably put on very good antler growth. Antler growth in deer is a function of a mild winter, good nutrition, and age. Now in northern Wisconsin, most of our units are buck only. Therefore, those fawns are not going to be able to be available for harvest because they do not have any legal size antlers if they're buck fawns. So we had really good survival this summer, so it should be an excellent year for deer hunting in northern Wisconsin.
The Central Forest Zone is made up of portions of 7 counties located right in the central part of the state. It's a forested area made up of public, private land ownership, and it's an area that I know that a lot of people like to hunt and recreate. Similar to northern forest, we've had a very mild winter this past year, and our previous 2 winters were pretty severe winters, which really impacted the deer herd, reduced the deer numbers. Over the last couple of years, we had reduced the permit levels trying to increase that deer herd, and we've been successful in doing that in some areas, and I think that this fall we're going to be even more successful in doing that. Overall, we're seeing increased fawn production this past spring. We had a great early green up, which is really, really important for white-tailed deer, especially does, as they come out of winter and they have those fawns and they have those high nutrient levels to provide those fawns. And I think that hunters are going to also see nicer antlered animals as well in the bucks, with that green vegetation, that lush vegetation out there. A couple of things that we want to point out this fall for hunters within the Central Forest. First off, in Jackson County, in the forested portion of Jackson County, we will again have 0 antlerless permits available there. That's going to be a buck-only unit. The surrounding counties within the Central Forest will have antlerless permits available, but again, reduced from what we saw a couple of years ago. And again, the intent there is to bring that deer herd up by shooting less antlerless deer. Hunters in Eau Claire, Jackson, and Clark counties should be aware that this fall we do have a deer baiting and feeding ban in effect, and that was a result of finding a CWD positive deer on a deer farm in Eau Claire County. Any county within 10 miles of the location of that CWD positive animal will also have a deer baiting and feeding ban. So that will include Clark and Jackson counties. We now have elk on the landscape, which is very exciting. This past year we brought elk in from Kentucky. Elk are a protected species in Wisconsin, so hunters should be advised that they cannot harvest an elk. Make sure that if you're going to harvest an animal, it is in fact a white-tailed deer. Hunters in the Central Forest should focus their efforts on a couple of things. First off, we've got a fantastic acorn crop this year, both the white oak and red oak. The second thing that I think is overlooked but is occurring in the Central Forest is we have a fair amount of timber harvesting going on. And timber harvesting provides a fantastic opportunity for hunters to focus in their efforts on a great habitat area and also a great area for deer to use as escape cover. So find those areas, they're different to hunt, but learn how to hunt them and you'll have success.
I'm going to be giving you the deer hunting forecast for the central farmland, which stretches across Wisconsin from Lake Michigan all the way to the Mississippi River. some of the most productive deer hunting landscapes in the country are in central Wisconsin, and we've got a healthy deer population going into the fall of 2015. In most respects, we expect at least as good, if not better, in deer sightability, which means better deer hunting opportunities for 2015. Most of the counties have declared through their advisory councils to maintain their deer populations. Even a maintenance goal in these highly productive farmland counties means a need for a very liberal antlerless deer harvest. The exception to that is a small block of counties on the eastern part of our zone, Winnebago, Fond du Lac, Sheboygan County. They're looking at probably a similar deer harvest to 2014, and those counties have declared a goal to actually increase their deer population somewhat, and so they've backed off a little bit on antlerless takes. The same could be said on the western side of the state for Chippewa County. Trempealeau County is another county that has declared a goal of increasing their deer herd, and so backing off a little bit on additional antlerless tags. In a lot of the counties, the public land tags are already sold out, so opportunities to take additional antlerless deer are going to be primarily on the private properties. For those of you that have access to that land, great, and if you don't, the opportunity to communicate with landowners that very well may recognize that they've got more deer in their landscape than they'd like, and are willing to have a few additional antlerless deer taken. Those opportunities might be there for those that are willing to go out and knock on doors and communicate with their neighbors. So the main message in the central farmland is if you're in a spot, you're seeing deer, you're comfortable with the deer population, you're going to be doing yourself, the deer herd, the landscape, and all the people that live in this area a favor by taking advantage of harvesting antlerless deer.
The southern farmland is made up of a wide variety of different habitat types, covering the coulee region in the west, all the way to the more populated urban areas on the east. All of this is dominated by an agricultural landscape. As a result of that agricultural landscape, there's a wide variety of food sources available for deer as well as other wildlife. Deer populations are looking really good across the majority of the district. We have great deer numbers generally, but keep in mind that it all takes good scouting to identify where deer are exactly located. Hunters also should be aware that throughout the entire southern farmland zone, CWD is prominent on the landscape. Hunters that are interested in having their animal tested can call any of their local DNR offices, and we can work with them to get that sample collected. We will be working with meat processors throughout the entire zone to collect a representative age sample of all deer that are harvested. We aren't looking for just the large bucks or the old does, but we're also looking for the young antlerless deer, and specifically the fawns that are throughout the entire zone. If hunters are interested in donating any additional deer, they may participate in the venison donation program. Hunters interested in participating can check out our Wisconsin DNR website for more information on where they can specifically donate any additional deer and help out those needy individuals in their area. Throughout the southern farmland zone, the season structure is generally the same as what it was last year, except there will not be a holiday hunt available this year. So if you're headed out in the southern farmland zone, have a great hunt. There's a wide variety of different hunting opportunities on public and private land, and generally there's an abundance of deer throughout the entire zone.